welcome to my channel with Colorful Worlds. Today I'm going to be going over all of the different pages that I have colored this month. I actually ended up doing 10. It was a very busy month with coloring for me. Part of it's because I had different goals. I had a goal of finishing up different whips. I had a couple buddy colors as well, and I was following quite a few of the Instagram coloring hashtags. It became fun to challenge myself and see how many I could end up trying to get by the end of the month without necessarily feeling overwhelmed. I also wanted to make sure that I finished most of my fall themed coloring pages so that in December I can really go deep into the Christmas and winter themed pages. So I ended up coloring in 4 different books as well as a couple loose leaf papers, and that definitely helps make it go a tiny bit faster. And at the end of this video I'll also go over what my December coloring plans are. Alright, let's go to the tabletop view and see what I have colored. Alright, so the first page that I colored was a long-standing whip that I had in Romantic Country, the Second Tale. And this is a buddy colored with Amy from Amy Ward Art. And it is this Manon's flower page where they're decorating for spring. So slightly out of season, but still really fun to color. What I did with this was challenge myself to just use polychromos pencils. And so it was a bit of a difficult thing to do because I'm not used to those pencils, and I also have a limited set of them. So the things that I discovered was it was really fun to make this brickwork. I think those colors are absolutely gorgeous. Things that I found difficult was creating a nice clear gradient for the sky. One thing I tried doing was using my odorless mineral spirit or Gamsol to try to melt the wax a tiny bit to make it a bit smoother, but it didn't quite work with these pencils since they're not wax-based pencils. It doesn't melt very well. Another thing that I did was I added lots of grass here, and initially I was planning on having it be a bit of a grass path leading to the house, but I kind of forgot to do that in the heat of the moment, and so just colored everything in the bottom with grass. And I tried to keep it to a limited color palette as much as I could so that it could still look very cohesive. So this was a really fun one to do here, and I very much enjoyed it. Thank you, Amy, for buddying with me on this, and I love that we both ended up finishing it around the same time as well. So that's the first one that I have, which is Manon's Flowers, Getting Ready for Spring from Erie's The Second Tale. So the second book is Worlds Within Worlds by Kirby Rosance, and this is another whip that I wanted to try to finish before the end of the year. I had already completed this side for Halloween, and that was done on the 6th of October, so I wanted to complete this one, and it was done just over a month later on the 12th of November. So I have a tutorial online of how I created this scratch art effect, this neon scratch art effect with all of the different leaves. I did not, however, make a tutorial for the way I did the galaxy in the middle because I learned that myself from Amy on one of her tutorials, and so I will link that over here instead for you to see if you're curious about how to get to that effect there. Overall, however, I really enjoyed it. It was a very cool way of addressing this page because before that, I really didn't have any idea of how to make this page look cohesive. I didn't like the idea of having a galaxy versus like verdant green. It was a bit too clashy for me. I prefer things to be a bit more cohesive in the colors, and so this way, by kind of having it be this neon reflection, everything still works very well cohesively together. So it was a good page to do for Spacetember, for Halloween, and it just kind of trickled into November as well. But yep, that is the second page that I have completed for this month. Another long-standing whip, well, I guess a whip for a month, but a second whip, and since that was one of my goals for the month was to finish whips, I was starting off on a roll. So my third completed page is from Johanna Basford's Small Victories, and it's the printout that she has on her website, which was part of the advertising campaign for the book when it came out. So the reason I did this one is because I was lucky enough to meet Barbara Color on YouTube because she was holding a workshop in her town in Belgium. And since I live in Europe, it was very easy for me to get to. And it was really fun. So it took 2 different weekends in October, but I didn't actually finish this page until November. And what I was doing in the workshop was I was experimenting with the different coloring pencil brands that she had available, as well as the brands that the other participants brought with them. Altogether, I think everyone had around 5,000 pencils in the room for the workshop. It was very fun. So this first one here I experimented with was with polychromos. I struggle a tiny bit with using oil-based because I was such a Prismacolor girl. I grew up on Prismas, as in my coloring journey, not my childhood. And so it was fun to kind of try to learn a new way of doing this one here. What Barbara had recommended was to use Derwent Inktense on top of the Prismacolor pencils to create a nice smooth gradient blend. And so that's a really good technique that I probably could have brought into this one here with the background, and it could be a way of perhaps trying to fix this gradient blend if I ever care to do so. At the moment, I am not too miffed. I think it's a really pretty page as is, but just for future reference, if with polychromos, that's a technique. So use Derwent Inktense on top of polychromos to try to make it like a nice, smooth, solid color. Another thing that she taught me was when you do stars to kind of have like the white around the pinprick of the star, and that helps make it blurred out a tiny bit, plus half stars come in small clumps. So some really fun things that I learned from the tutorial just with a small piece. I then used luminance on this one here, and that was nice seeing those pencils. They're very rich, very vibrant, but I find them to be a bit thick. And so coming up to like a nice small point, I feel like you'll have to sharpen them quite a bit. And so I'm not sure if I would get a set of luminance, even though the colors are gorgeous. The thickness of the barrel makes me feel as though I might not be able to get as precise as I would like to be, even though the colors are really beautiful. And I was aiming for a nice bouquet effect, and it was so quick and easy to blend this out. Took almost no effort, and that was a pleasure there. For this one here, I used Lightfast, Derwent Lightfast. Again, I would say not my favorite pencil. I don't think I'll end up buying them because I find them a bit difficult to blend, even though the colors are really beautiful together. And so I still managed to get some blends in, but it was a tiny bit difficult. I didn't like the feel of the pencil as much, even though the colors were really beautiful. Another thing with the Lightfast though is that the color is only at the end of the barrel, and so I would imagine it'll be a bit hard to pick up the pencil you want immediately. Because with Prismacolor at least, I know exactly what all the colors look like, and so it's easy for me to pick up a pencil. And that's just some of the downsides I found of Lightfast, even though they give really beautiful colors. I think my least favorite was probably the Artix pencils that I had tried. They were not very pigmented and they're a bit scratchy, so that was not like my favorite thing to do there. This one here was using, I believe, the Faber-Castell Albert Dürer pencils, and I really do enjoy these a lot. I'm considering getting this as a future set. It just kind of blends easily and would make great both base layers and final layers, and I know that Shelley over on Shell's Coloring Journey has some really beautiful work that she does with them, so that was really nice. My favorite pencil to use was this one here, and that was the Derwent Chroma Flow. They're much lighter in hand, like they feel very, very like light and airy, but the pencil tip is kind of has a blendability of Prismas, but has some more hardness to it, so you can get better, sharper lines with it. And so this one I really, really enjoyed doing, and Chroma Flow has now kind of like joined my maybe buy list one day, even though I'm not necessarily looking to expand my pencil range. It's on my the pencils that I like. And then just some of the final ones here were the pencils that I currently have and own. I think I used Inktense for both of these together just to kind of go through them quickly. And this one here was Derwent Graphite Tint was the last one that I had tried. And so that was interesting as well to have all of the beautiful different muted colors working together. You could imagine it filling some of the missing colors in any range, and they're also water soluble. So there we go. That's the learning that I had done in Barbara Colors Atelier, and had my little 9 vignettes from Johanna Basford as my completed page at the end of it all. So my next page is coming back into Romantic Country, the Second Tale by Erie, and this was a buddy color where people got really interested in doing these owl pages, so I jumped in on that as well. This one was really quick because I was using Derwent ink tints as well as some ink pads for the background, and that just made everything go very rapidly. I was done really quickly. So when I was doing this, I wanted it to be kind of like the first snow of the season, to have it be just kind of snowy and stormy. And so I had my light effect here with my ink pads that I was experimenting with. I just have some cheap ones in a set of 12 from a company called Aladdin. They're not as fancy as like Tim Holtz Ranger ink pads. And then I was experimenting with just still the limited set that I had with some, trying to create grays with the blacks and the blues, and it worked out, gave a nice smoky feel. I added other yellow dots kind of around it to kind of have it be more interesting and have different sources of light in different places. Then I just used Derwent ink tints for everything else in this page, and I had added in some acrylic paint pens as well, a tiny bit of Thule art for the edges of the leaves here to make them a bit more defined, and then of course the white to give all the big snowdrops. And I was trying to have snow kind of like sit at the top of the trees and in little crooks and crannies to kind of demonstrate that it's the first snowfall of the season. But yeah, I like this page a lot. It's very calm and cozy, works well for a early winter vibe, and this was done on the 13th of November, so around halfway through the month. So again, motivated by buddy colors, I'm back in with Worlds Within Worlds, and this one is this crown page over here. Jane with Colored with Love always gives different challenges, and the one that she gave for Kirby was a prompt royalty, and I thought what better representation of royalty than a crown. So another really quick one. This was done 3 days later on the 16th of November, and I used again those ink pads for the background, very similar colors to what I had done in the previous one. And I also took a little sponge with some Winsor Newton white ink, and I just kind of blotted that everywhere as well to just kind of make it look really stormy. Even here in the sea, after coloring it in, I just went over it with my now dying Artistro paint pen. You can see that like I've used quite a bit of it, like there's just that much left of this paint pen, which is nice having it be a clear barrel. But side note, I used that to just kind of really make it frothy waves there in the middle. When it came into the rest of it, I just chose different of my cool grays to make this silvery, and then some just reds to make it red, and I use a tiny bit of my Jelly Roll metallics on some of the smaller elements as well, plus just straight up metallic silver Thule art paint pen for all of these details here, and here. And so normally I don't tend to cover things just with pure metallic paint pens like that. I prefer to just shade it out because otherwise it can be a bit dull and flat. But for this one, I didn't mind. For some reason I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go for it and see kind of what happens and just let it be a page that has that. And overall, I'm very pleased with the effect. So it was really fun to do, really quick to do as well, using those multimedias. Pencils tend to take the longest, right? So the most time I spent was actually doing this metal here and this metal coming up here, and everything else went by very rapidly. But yeah, so this is done, and I'll probably be doing this next month, but I'll talk about that at the end of the video. Alright, and the next one that I have finished is from Magical Worlds. I'm going to be turning this into a full book color along, I've decided, and it has just brought me so much joy as well. So you'll probably recognize the vignettes page over here that I had made small videos for. So they're around 10 minutes long, tutorials for each of these. And I use the same limited color palette of around a dozen pencils. It was wonderful doing this here, and it was very rewarding to see different people follow it and then tag me with the color alongs that I have done on Instagram. Thank you so much for all of you who have done that. I appreciate that very much. It's very heartwarming to see people follow along with your tutorials. But yeah, it's brought so much joy, I keep saying, because it really has. It's just a really fun, beautiful page to do. I'll have another video coming out soon where I explain kind of my experiences and processes doing small vignettes from this book. But ultimately, it just boils down to learning about how vignettes can be really cool and powerful to learn new techniques. So for me, for instance, it was using a mix of the paint pens with the Prismacolor pencils, and another was how do you create like soft blurred backgrounds with the Prismacolor pencils, and finally how do you just on a video editing level create tutorials that are easy to follow along without being either too quick and confusing or too slow and plodding. And so it was really fun to kind of use this to practice some of those editing skills as well. But that's the only one that I have completed this month from Magical Worlds. So still waiting to be motivated by finishing off different whips. I kind of considered this to be a whip even though I had nothing colored on it, and that's because I have this itch where if it's a double page spread like this, I feel very strongly the urge to cover both pages of it so that it can feel complete. So I had finished this one in October, and that was for the Halloween 13 for Halloween bingo prompt challenge that I had hosted with Sabina, and the prompt here was Cauldron. I had also used a color cube to come up with this color palette, and I had based it using some Prismacolor watercolor pencils. So for this side over here, I wanted to continue that trend of kind of having it look like stickers, because that's the overall effect with the vignettes that I've been practicing, is how do you make a vignette page look cohesive? And so for here, the cohesion came from having it look like stickers. And to do so, I wanted a solid black background. So that's when I used my Thule Art paint pen plus a Prismacolor pencil overlay. And then I made sure to leave like enough of a white area around each element. And I had actually kind of drawn it in very lightly with a pencil first to get that going. So sticking with the same color palette on the other end, I made sure to kind of prioritize the purples to make that the predominant color, and just have the reds be a bit more like of a touch of red. And so that way I can ensure that with the color palette there's still some cohesion here, because with the card that I had from the color cube, it had just like one red and everything else was blues, purples, and blacks. And I really liked having that as a contrast color as opposed to just an even mix of all the different colors. Things that I really love about this page are, of course, the shading that I had done on the hat. I like that I made the plants black and the candles black, so it's very Halloween-y altogether. You can see a tiny bit over here that there's a bit of a overlap, and I had kind of like pulled the colors in and I didn't like it and I wanted to round it out. So that is like several layers of acrylic paint pens, but the color keeps kind of getting absorbed in. But at this point, like, it's fine. I think overall, when you look at it from a distance, it's a very cohesive page and it made me very happy to do. So I finished this one on the 19th of November. And that's the only one that I have done in Rooms of Wonder this month, but it brought me to 25% completion for this book. I just made a video where I go through all of the different pages I have done in this book. It's linked right up here, but it's very exciting to know I'm like 25% of the way through with the book without even realizing it until I just arbitrarily began to count. So my next page is another printout page, and this is with a buddy color with Sabina over on Instagram, and it is a page that is free from the website of Dini, and the page itself is called Mariana, so you can find it on her Facebook page. And so for this one, I did a basing with some alcohol markers for the elements, and then I used my distress inks for the backgrounds. I've been using them quite a lot this month to get some of those background works in. Part of my color decisions too was I wanted it to be like traditional Christmassy with our reds and our greens, but throw in some golds for a contrast. But also there is the Portrait Year of Color challenge on Instagram, and the prompt for this month was white hair, red lips. And that's why I decided to keep her hair white here. I completed the entire thing in just one evening as well. It was very quick and fun to do. And so the main thing I was kind of struggling with was color placement more than anything else, especially when you have this double bow here. But I enjoyed it. It worked out. It worked out trying to figuring out how to use blush with my Ohuhu alcohol markers. And for the snow globes, or sorry, for the baubles over here, I added little white dots. I saw that Sabina had done that for hers to add glitter, and I was like, ooh, that's a perfect idea. So I added my little white dots on the snow globes to make them extra shiny. Initially, I was trying to make them shiny by adding Wink of Stella, but it wasn't mixing very well with the alcohol markers, and everything started to get a tiny bit streaky. So that was not a successful use of Wink of Stella in this case, for whatever reason. And but other than that, like, it was a fun, quick Christmassy page to do. All right, so final one, and I completed this at the very last minute last night on the 30th of November. It's my double page stag spread over here. So this was another whip that I wanted to complete. If you remember, my goal is to try to complete all of my different whips if possible. And this one I had started following the tutorial with Karen from My Colorful Country Life by having some of the green in the shrubbery, and then I had stopped. So the entire page just for a month had a tiny bit of green here and here and nothing else. So I wanted this to be a fall themed page, and so I went ahead and tried really hard to finish it this month because I didn't want to have fall themed pages in December. November feels like the absolute limit of when you can have fall themed pages. So for these stags, everything was just a ton of different mixed media here. I had done it with a base of my Derwent Inktense. On top of it, I used a mix of my small set of polychromos with my Prismacolor pencils to try to make this look as much as like fur as possible. And I think I, for the most part, succeeded. They look a tiny bit shaggy, but maybe they're just growing out their fur in preparation for an upcoming winter, who knows. Then the leaves here were all based with Derwent and then colored on top with Prismas. And then the entire background I did with my, you guessed it, ink pads. So a lot of ink pad work this month. And that's part of why I think I managed to get 10 full pages done as well. It just speeds up the process with everything. So I don't really have all of the colors that I want. I had like a pale yellow and then kind of like a browny orange and then a brown. I tried to throw in some green as well to make it look a bit like it was an out of focus effect. I'm not sure if I like having that there. It might have been a bit more successful if it was like only yellows in the background, but the green kind of helped to make it look a bit less like a forest fire, because considering it was just such dark dusty orange in the background, it kind of reminded me of a fire, like the air during a fire, and I didn't like that as much. So I was trying to mitigate it to make it look a tiny bit more like it's just a fall page, not like a ominous fiery fall page. I then did a mix of just Prismacolors here, but ended up being very light, so I went on top of it with my Ohuhu water-based markers, and then that was too dark. But then I had the brilliant idea, because the Ohuhu hadn't absorbed yet, it was still having some resist from the wax. I just wiped it, and then suddenly it was like a quick opaque, a quick translucent wash of color. So I just colored, and then wiped, colored, and wiped. And what that did was it left a thin layer of the Ohuhu water-based marker on top of the Prismacolor pencil, just making it a shade darker. And I did that with both of them, making it a bit of a shade darker, and I really appreciated that effect. For down here, it was again just like a mix of my Ohuhu water-based markers with Prismacolor pencils, just kind of going back and forth with all of them. I wanted it to kind of look like the change of the season, moving from summer into fall, and that's why you still have some green, even though oranges are starting to get predominant. But yeah, so I enjoyed the cohesion of this page, and I'm happy to have finished yet another whip off of my list. And that is it. Pages 9 and 10 for this month. So altogether I have several pages in with Worlds Within Worlds, some loose leaf pages in as well. You have Rooms of Wonder, Magical Worlds, and Romantic Country, the Second Tale, as all of my completed colorings for the month. So there you go. Those are all of the different pages that I have colored for this month. When I do a count, I would say that around 4 of them were buddy colors and another 4 of them were long-standing whips that I wanted to finish. And so that meant that in terms of my choices for the month was pretty much dictated by those motivations, and it was really nice because it felt a bit more satisfying, I think, to be able to finish a long-standing whip or to have the community around you to do a buddy color with a page. It was a very, very rewarding coloring month, I would say, overall. In terms of my goals for next month and the guiding stars that will kind of define my goals, one of them is just first off the knowledge that I'm not going to get as much done because of the Christmas holidays and some family reunions that I have planned. So automatically I won't be able to color as much as if I had had a stay-at-home cozy Christmas. And so the things that I do want to finish are some other kind of whips, and I also have a couple buddy colors in mind, as well as having some themed pages around Christmas that I want to finish as well. On top of that, I have my criteria of ensuring I'm always coloring in Worlds Within Worlds at least one page a month, and one of my 3 Eerie books at least 1 page a month. And finally, making sure that I have another tutorial video posted from Magical Worlds. So with that said, let's kind of jump into the different options that I have and go over what my coloring plans are for December. Alright, so the first book that is on my December coloring list is in Magical Worlds. Because I want to turn this into a full book coloring along, I know that I need to have at least 1 page done a month in this particular book. So I have a couple different options. I'm not saying I can get to all of them, but I do have a few options I want to explore for this month. One of them is I had started this page here as a whip. And so part of it is to show people how to have a nice little drop shadow behind different objects. And I had also used Durant Inktense and Polychromos in the background. However, in the video that I'm in the process of creating, I'm explaining how you can have this same effect here with Prismacolor pencils as well, for anyone who might only have the Prisma set and want just to have the tutorials beyond that set. But this is my current work in progress for this page, which I might try to finish in December because I'm, as you know, not a big fan of having any long-standing whips. So that is one option. So after this, the second page that I have is this one over here. And this I have signed up with as a buddy color with Jody Colors over on YouTube and Instagram. And so it would be a really nice one to do for a Christmas where people tend to have more rain than snow for Christmas. So I'm imagining this having some like muted colors, but still through that having a bit of a cozy vibe through this page. So that is the second option. However, my third option from this book is going to be these baby dragon pages over here, because I have had quite a few requests of people asking for a color along with this one specifically. So I have an idea in mind finally about what I can do with it. My issue with this page that's been stopping me is that it doesn't feel very cohesive at the moment. How do I make this look like a single unit when you have dragons that are in this perfect square, but if you, like, where's your horizon line? Like, what are you looking at? And so it looks more like 4 vignettes as opposed to a cohesive single piece, but I have an idea of how I can make this look like a cohesive single piece by manipulating the background. So for this one here, my plan is to do a tutorial in 2 different stages. One of them is to just do the individual pieces, and then the second is a bit more complicated, showing how to maybe do a background. And that way people can follow along up to their comfort level if they just want to do the small vignettes and leave it at that, or if they want to give a go at trying to make a background that makes sense with this particular piece here. So that's another coloring idea I have. It's on the top of my list because it's been requested so much. I'm not sure if I can finish this in December, but I will try. Another one is maybe to do this one here next. This is the only one that really reminds me of Christmas, of all of the books, of all of the different illustrations in this book. And that's in part because this could potentially be a gingerbread house. And so you can have this be like your snowy frosting and all the candy that's kind of around it with your little candy canes. And you can make this that nice, rich brown color that you have with gingerbread. And so this entire thing could be, yeah, just a really pretty gingerbread house for Christmas as an idea. lastly, and this is the final idea that I have for this book. See, that's why I love this book. I'm just filled with ideas. It's this one here. And so what I would do was actually use the same colors that I used here and make them a matching color palette over on this side. And so that way it's a bit less thinking for me because the color palette is already decided from that page coming into this page here. And I know exactly which colors will go where in my mind already. I'm thinking of making the trees white here, following one of the tutorials that Erica from Elm Colors has done with a different one from Rooms of Wonder. And I'll still have that be green, and then I'll have like the pink flamingos match the pink birds over there, have that water match the water over there. I think it could look really nice and cohesive as a page if I use the same colors there over here. So that wraps it up for the different ideas I have for Magical Worlds. I know I will definitely be doing the buddy color at least, and hopefully some of the other pages as well. Other than that, I have Teresa Goodridge's Country Charm coming on up here too. This is the only Creative Haven book that I own and the only Teresa Goodridge book that I own, and I tend to break this book out in the fall. So almost all the pages that I've colored are fall themed. But I did notice that in the back of the book there are some winter themed pages as well, which could be fun to color using alcohol markers. I like having some alcohol marker options because it just goes really quickly and it's very satisfying and calming to do in a single sitting. So this would be one of the options that I have here that has all of the snow falling. This would be another winter option too, just having like a nice cozy inside space. And then finally, it would be this one here, another kind of winter option as well with the different snowfall on the animals, and you can see like the Christmas holly as well. And what would be nice about that is it would mean that all of the final pages in this book would all be colored in, and I like the idea of having all my coloring pages next to each other. There's something satisfying about filling in the gaps. So that's my ideas that I have for Country Charm by Teresa Goodridge. Some quick, easy wins using alcohol markers. Alright, so next up is my Worlds Within Worlds book, and that, like I had mentioned, is because I want to get this book finished, so I have to color at least one of these pages a month. That's my goal. When I'm thinking in terms of Christmas coloring pages, the one that I thought of the most was this hand here. I had done this one here as a jumble hand, and there's a bit of an awkward tutorial online if you want to go look at my YouTube channel for it. And I'm thinking of having this kind of be the cold, icy, blue toned version compared to the red, warm, tropical version in my little, I guess, imaginary planet. So when I had created this one, I imagined that this was a hand that was in a world, a planet that was filled with all of these little hand ecosystems. So I drew in my horizon line and I made it kind of like black silhouette-y, pretending that this was the sun and like a really rich sunset. And then these are all of the different like hand planets with some bird life off of that one there. I didn't draw it very well. I hope the effect came across, but that was sort of the world I was imagining here. And if this is in the tropics, this could be in the polar region at the same time on this imaginary planet filled with our little hand ecosystems. So what I would do is I would just continue the horizon line at the bottom, and I'd still have it be kind of like a silhouette over there, but all of this would just kind of be more icy and blue and gray as an effect. So my Kirby buddy coloring group has agreed to do this as a buddy color with me as well. So that is a definite of what I would like to color from this month. There is another option in this book I was thinking of coloring if I have the energy and the time, and that is to do this page here. And again, in part, that's because I like it when my two different sides match, especially if they already have so many elements in common. So here, crown to crown, this to me is a double page spread, not a single page spread, and is therefore half complete. I was thinking of having this one, instead of having the cool colors, have this be the warm colors. So the silver crown versus the golden crown. That'll be very similar to this, where you have like your blues versus your reds. They'll continue with the blues versus the reds on this side as well. And so that's the idea that I have for this. and it kind of fulfills it being wintry. It's the closest as I can get to Christmas, following Jane from, what's it called, Colored with Love. Her prompt was Christmas, and that's the only 2 Christmas pages I could think of from Worlds Within Worlds, and those are my 2 options. All right. So next up is eerie, because another one of my coloring goals is to make sure I have an eerie page colored each month. So here in the first country, there are some buddy color friends who have already gotten started, and some have already finished this particular page here. And so I was thinking of joining them in on that as well. Some of them have done some really cool things where they have drawn in a background. Someone had like a window and a staircase already and a fireplace. And so I think it has been very inspiring to see what they have done on this page to see if I can replicate it. So this is on the list for me to do. I will be honest, however, I'm not as excited about this page as I am about some of the other potential Christmas pages. And that is the one found in the third tale. I still might end up coloring this instead because I do like coloring with friends and buddies. It's, like I said, motivating to have a community and to see what other people do with their work. So that's most probably what I'll end up doing. However, if I was to follow a bit more of my heart, I'd actually be doing this page instead because it's very calming and very enchanting for Christmas. Part of the reason I wanted to do this one as well is because when I was flipping through Helen Ellinston's colorist special effects, I found this interesting tutorial where she kind of shows you how to create a really beautiful snowfall background. And so when I was going through all of my books, this is the one that stood out to me as having the perfect setting already, or the perfect layout for that potential background. And you even have some of your snowfalls and your snowflakes ready to go. And so that's kind of what motivates me to maybe pick this page, is to practice that really beautiful background here and have this page colored. So I might end up doing both. Who knows? I'm very short on time this month, and there's just so much that I would like to do. But that page interests me a lot from Romantic Country, the third tale. All right, so next up are ideas of Christmas, Johanna's Christmas, and also something from Little Victories. I know that my friend Sabina is running a hashtag on any kind of wreaths for November and December, and I did not manage to get to the wreaths in this book that I had originally tagged to do in November, and that is the fall wreath and the Christmas wreath. But I'm thinking of maybe doing this Christmas wreath page here for Christmas because it's very small, right? It's a little victory. It could be a nice, quick, easy one to complete. However, if I would be interested in another kind of wreath idea, it might be from this book instead. And so some of the different pages I have tagged is not a wreath, but maybe doing this. Has like a really beautiful gingerbread effect. I think that could be really cool to do, but also a bit tiring because again it's a double page spread and I'm not sure how much time I have for double page spreads, but that was one of my ideas. But in terms of a wreath, I was looking at this page here because I think it's absolutely gorgeous. The nice thing about Johanna's Christmas is that they're single-sided, and so I could use alcohol markers to base this if I wanted to make it go a tiny bit faster. And so that's an idea that I have as well that could make this a potential to do for this month. When I had originally gotten this book last year, I had done this page here following the tutorial of Chris Cheng, and I told myself then a year ago I would like to get at least one page done a year at Christmas in this book, and so that's kind of what's prompting me to make sure I get this one in as well. So I was looking through my books, I remembered I have Soulmates, and I do really love this book, and I have not colored in it as much as I would like to. So for the Christmas pages, this one stood out to me as being the most wintry and Christmassy of them all. You have your beautiful caribou with their spirit soulmates, and it could just be a really nice, cool, wintry page to do as well. I'm not sure how interested I am in doing this one. I feel as though I'd have to put a lot of time and effort to just really make it beautiful, imagining drawing in like a forest background perhaps, but this was on my list to do from Hannah Carlson. But Hannah Carlson, being Hannah Carlson, has other books, including a Christmas book. And I do have Good Yule, which I have never colored in. And I also have Atlantis. So this year I've actually finished, and I finished it on Sunday, the 1st of December, and it was a buddy color that I had with Jane from Colored with Love. And so this one is already completed, so I'm just showing you a sneak peek. It'll be part of the December completed pages video. But yes, this was a buddy color for this book, and I just completed it, so it counts for my December pages. But if I were to come into Good Yule, I have no idea which page I would pick from this. There's so many gorgeous, gorgeous options in this particular book. If I were to say which ones I'm leaning towards, it would probably be, see if I can find it quickly. It would be the church vignette. Yeah, this one. It might just be this one here because I find just it's such an absolutely gorgeous page, beautifully laid out, and you have this beautiful just like star on top of this church with this beautiful frame around it. So I might end up doing this particular page as my option from Good Yule. And it could be cool if I have a page done from here every year, as well as a page from Johanna's Christmas every year, and that way I have a couple seasonal books slowly plodding along towards completion. This ended up being a longer video than I was expecting. No wonder everyone separates their December coloring plans from their November completed pages. But anyways, if you're here for this long, thank you so much for watching. But anyways, I know, I'm so tired. I should keep that as a blooper. Anyways, if you're still here, thank you so much for watching up until this point. Please don't forget to leave a comment in the comments, and happy coloring. Bye, everybody.